when we're born can only see through a pinpoint size hole into what our period of time is in effect to the universe. And so like in that moment, I feel like when you deal with your mortality and acceptance that like you may not be here in a year, that hole expands.
Hey, y'all, we got a great episode of Overeducated and Underemployed for you this week. We got Red Padilla from Red and the Revelers. I saw him open for Morris Day and the Time, New Year's Eve. Sat down with Red on New Year's Day. Oh man, that was such a great show. Hope you're digging the new theme song. If you haven't pre-ordered Love and Other Diagnosis by Sloan Brothers, there's a link in the description. Make sure you do that, and it'll be streaming everywhere next week. Next week, we got Wiley Gaby, who will be at the Dialback Sound label showcase at Flickr on Friday as part of the Drive-By Truckers Heathens Homecoming. Dialback's been doing a showcase every year. It's where I've seen Thelma and the Sleaze. It's where I've seen Taylor Hollingsworth. And I'm excited to see Wiley. Wiley will be in the studio before that event, and you'll get to listen to that on your way up to Athens next week. I'm also sponsoring an event at the Blue Tavern. This podcast is with Danny Bedrosian of Parliament Funkadelic. He's going to be playing an exclusive, curated historical set, going through and playing covers of Parliament Funkadelic songs, but also giving you a history lesson in between each one. I hope y'all come out to that. It's going to be super limited, very small venue. Blue Tavern in Tallahassee, February 27th. And that's all getting geared up for the P-Funk Fest in April, celebrating George Clinton's 85th birthday. So get your tickets for that as well. I'm going to be there covering it. I'll be doing some interviews. We're going to have a great time. Hit that subscribe button. Please like this episode if you like it. And tell me who you want to see on the show. Without any further ado, here's my talk with Red Padilla. Stay safe out there, y'all. Welcome to Overeducated and Underemployed.
Hell yeah.
I'm here with Red Padilla.
That's right.
And Red and I have been friends this is actually a cool
It is.
Cool bringing together of a bunch of different worlds for me.
Yeah.
Beginning of this season, I had Tommy Simbazo on.
Hell yeah.
I don't know that you really know him, but he runs the Monday night VR comedy nights.
Oh, that's cool.
That you've come and seen, and he's always hosted, and Red's come and seen me perform in VR quite a bit. I've helped him do some stuff, trying to get some live music shows in VR, experimenting with it. We're getting there. We're hopefully
VR's still in the infant stages.
Yeah. But anyway, last night you opened for Morris Day and the motherfucking Time.
Morris Day and the motherfucking Time, baby.
And I finally got to come see you play,
it was quite an experience. Yeah.
And here we are. And that's just a little backstory for everybody. Mm-hmm. But I don't know much about the things that we're going to be talking about today, to be honest with you.
That's good. You're going to learn something today, then.
That's great. So I'm going to start with the first question I ask everybody.
Okay.
What's the first song that you remember loving as a kid?
Man, that's a great question. The first song that I remember loving as a kid, like just honestly, man, I can remember back, and I would probably say one of the first songs that I can remember just like loving and like wanting to dance and sing around to was probably Try a Little Tenderness by Otis Redding.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's probably one of my, we haven't done it with the band yet, but I really want to do it at one point. But I just remember, I think with Otis, the thing with him for me was the energy, the way he sang, the way he controlled his voice, and just the power behind it, the feeling. And that just, I guess that just resonated with me. Just that I didn't just want to be a singer. I wanted to be like a performer. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I would say it's probably one that I just like fell in love with. There's a lot though. I don't think I'm one of those persons that has just a favorite song.
Yeah.
I have a favorite song that's fluid. It changes from time to time.
Sure,
You know?
sure. But that's one that you really remember connecting with as a kid.
Oh yeah,
Do you
yeah,
remember
yeah.
where you heard it or anything like that?
No, I just assume. So growing up, my parents, like, I would say, controlled the radio. Before I was like 12, and so they just always had it on the oldies station.
Oh,
You know,
gotcha. Yeah,
so
yeah.
like, I may not know the artist or like the song titles, but if any song from that era comes on, I can pretty much just sing along to all of
Yeah.
it because I've heard them 10 million times as a kid, and it just was one of those things that, like, I didn't know like popular music existed till I was like 12, until like grunge came into my life and like Nirvana and stuff like that really came around.
You was just like you were just exposed to oldies for the most part.
That, yeah, and that in church music. I grew
Yeah.
up in church, and it's like Southern gospel and stuff like that. And it wasn't like my parents kept it from me.
Mhm.
It was just
It's
I
not in your
liked what
world.
we were listening to, so I never really sought anything else out because it was the 90s. We didn't have the internet.
Yeah.
I couldn't just go online and be like, "Who's this?" It was like I had to be around somebody that was listening to that music. And then you get into middle school and you get more exposed to that kind of stuff. And because I can remember the first time I ever heard Nirvana was at my first boy-girl party. You know, and
Yeah.
Smells Like Teen Spirit comes on, and these two dudes I know that were like the alternative dudes or like the outside kind of dudes, and they were like, "Oh yeah," and they start running around headbanging, and I'm like, "What is this?" And then it just opened my whole world to a whole different new style of music. But
So I think everybody has, especially everybody that gets really into music, has one or two of those people growing up that like kind of starts in their teenage years turning them on to stuff. Usually it's
yeah,
an older brother or like a friend's older brother or something like
mhm.
that. Was there somebody like that for you that you can think of?
So yeah, it was a pretty much a different. It was several people because like I was classically trained on the piano from like 4 to 18.
Okay.
So my background is classical music, and then whatever oldies and stuff, and that's what like. But as far as playing music, that's what I focused on was classical.
Were you playing in the church a lot as a kid?
No, actually, nobody knew I played piano until I was 16.
Wow. How did that
It was
talk
it
about
was
that? Yeah.
just my mom started me on piano because she said that we had one, and I just wouldn't stop playing on it. And so she was like, if you were just going to do that, I had to get you lessons so you would play an actual song and just quit banging. And
Did anybody else in your family play or did you
so
just
my
have
mom
one?
played a little bit,
Uh-huh.
and that's why we had one. And then my dad, he was a bass guitar player in like a cover band in the 60s in like Oklahoma.
Okay.
And he played a little bit of guitar, and they every now and then they would go in there, but it was just we had access to it, and it was a time period where you didn't have tablets, you didn't have
Right.
on-demand television. So when something wasn't on, that's what I did. I went in there and I just pretended to be a musician. I just was, and so they got me that, and piano and music
But you
for
didn't even
me.
really know that pop music was a thing yet. So
Not really,
you're
no,
like
yeah.
pretending to be something that you're not
No, it
really
was
sure
just,
of, you
yeah, it just
know?
probably because what I heard in church, them
Yeah.
playing in church and stuff like that. Like the first time I ever sang in front of a crowd, my mom said was when I was 3. And we had every Wednesday night, one night a month, our church would do this thing where basically like a Christian open mic.
Uh-huh.
And anybody that wanted to come up and sing a song from the congregation could go up there and sing. You just had an opportunity to go up and share your testimony or do a Bible verse or do a skit, or you could do whatever, which I thought, looking back now, is pretty, at the time, was pretty far forward thinking for like
Yeah, that's
a church.
for sure.
But they said, does anybody want to, she had me sitting in her lap. Does anybody want to come up here and sing a special? She said, I just jumped out of her lap, ran down to the front, grabbed the microphone and sang Jesus Loves Me, and came back and sat down. And she said, I knew ever since then that that's where you wanted to be, was like on stage. And, but as far as like piano goes, for me, it was just something that was like for me.
Yeah.
The music was for me. I studied the music because I liked the challenge, but I loved creating something. And I think I practiced every day for at least 2 hours, at least, if not more, for years. And I went through 4 different teachers in my time period.
Did you just outgrow them? Yeah.
But it was a thing that I would sing specials in church. Everybody in church knew me as like a singer. That I it was just I was in my own world, so it never occurred to me to tell people that I played the piano because I didn't deem it as like a relevant point to whatever I was interacting with it
Yeah.
with. It's I decided I was going to finally play a special in church. My mom was like, "I want you to play something," and so I was like 16, and so I told them I was going to do a special. So they called me up, and I go up and I walk and I sit down at the piano, and some of the people in the church like started laughing because they thought it was a joke. They thought because I was a funny dude. I was always joking and stuff, and they thought I was playing a joke. And then I've learned this rendition of this. There's this Christian piano player named Dino that was real big in the '90s, and he'll take hymns and make them sound real impressive when it's just really a bunch of arpeggios
around it. Yeah, yeah.
And so I bust out this piece, and everybody's just what the like where did this? But it was just it was just one of those things that like. And then once I graduated high school, I was done with classical piano. I just decided
because you don't play piano in your current band, really.
I explored a little bit this Christmas. I played some, and I've started trying to write some on the piano more, just as a different exploration because I found that like all that muscle memory is still there.
Yeah.
Like when I write, I'll find myself playing riffs and classical music that I used to play just because it's what I'm used to. But yeah, man, it was just one of those things that like I took it as far as I was gonna take it, and I wanted to take it, and I was like, it's time to do something else musical wise. Because at that point, I'd found the guitar too, and then it was punk rock. And
then let's back up for a second. So you're learning classical piano this whole time. What are you listening to? You hear Nirvana, like I said, your first boy-girl party.
Yeah,
the floodgates open. I'm guessing.
I'm playing piano, and as I'm growing up, it's Otis Redding, it's Wilson Pickett, it's James Brown, but it's the Beatles, it's Willie Nelson, it's Glenn Campbell, it's Merle Haggard, it's Frank Sinatra, it's Earth, Wind and Fire, it's anything. So I'm the type of person like I don't latch on to artists and I don't latch on to players. You know, some of my guys, they know all the players on all the albums. They want to know who that never occurred to me to even look to see who was playing on an album. Because to me, what I worshipped was the song. Like, to me, ultimately, it doesn't matter what genre of music it is. If it's a good song, it's a good song. And I appreciate good songs because being classically trained, you're structurally minded. So like I view a song in its structure. Like how is it put together? How's the hook on this? So like when I write, one of the things our producer told me, he said, you're easy to produce for because you write your songs with the intention of how they're going to sound on the radio. That's like when I look at something, I'm looking for to be structured a certain way,
and to have a hook, and to have
and to have like that's how I'm minded. That's how my approach to music always was. It wasn't for me. It wasn't hero worship. It was song worship. Like, how can you get the best take out of this combination of notes? And so I think that really shapes. So like I'm going through and I'm listening to all that, and then I get into that grunge area. And of course, that leads to me. It was the '90s, so I start skateboarding. So then I get into skate punk and I get into ska music.
Yeah.
Which, when I was little, what really affected me about Motown and everything was that use of horns, real horn-driven music. And then you had this rock punk music, and then you had ska that combined both of them. And then it was this thing where that explores into you go into the 2000s, you get bands like Jamiroquai and stuff like that. That's taking these almost Stevie Wonder type grooves and combining them with this modern rock and it's just all this stuff. And I think that the reason my writing is the way it is because I've just had this conglomeration of just all these people introduce me. So like my sister was real influential to me. She's 8 years older than me, but she was a dancer. And as good as I am at music, she was great at dancing. She did ballet. She went to Russia and studied the Bolshoi Theater one summer for ballet.
Wow.
and just did tap and one of the fastest tap dancers I've ever known in my life. But because of that, we always, and I was younger, so I just had to watch whatever she wanted to watch. So I grew up on a lot of musicals. I grew up watching Gene Kelly. I grew up watching Gregory Hines and all these people and and going to plays and stuff. I remember she took me at 15 to go see Harry Connick Jr. in concert. And he brought his full New Orleans brass band, and dude, that changed my life at that moment because I'd never been exposed to that. How would I was a Mexican kid in fucking rural Arkansas. How am I going to find New Orleans sounds without being there in the 90s? And so when that came about, that's when it led to what I'm doing now. That was very influential for me. I got to meet Gregory Hines because of her. She took me to meet Gregory Hines and people that a lot of people my age didn't have a clue who they were. And I just had this really cultured upbringing between my parents and her, and then friends that I also played guitar with. There's a guy, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, named Adam Fawcett.
Yeah.
So we graduated high school together,
Oh wow.
and that was me and him and my buddy Josh Shepard. We get together and play guitar and stuff, and so they were real influential in showing me that, like Radiohead, and teaching me these riffs and all this other stuff, and kind of pushing me towards that way.
So when did you start writing songs then?
I would say I started to attempt to write songs when I first started learning guitar. I had this teacher named Danny Fletcher, and he was an amazing guitarist and a great teacher. I only got to study with him for a year just because, like, at the end of my high school years, I was a real busy kid. Like I was involved in a lot of different things, and between piano and that and sport, because I also played sports, and so I just didn't. I had to give up something, and I was already proficient enough at. My mom wasn't going to let me finish and quit piano before I graduated. So, it was he gave me enough to build that I knew enough music that I could take guitar on my own to a point at that point. But he really encouraged me to write. And I look back on that now, and there's not a lot of teachers that do that, but it didn't matter if it was shitty or not. He would take it and he'd go, okay, well that's a good start. And he I think the thing about songwriters they got to learn is that you got to write some shit ass songs before you get good. It's a muscle like anything else. You're not coming out the gate being Jason Isbell. You know what I'm saying? He went through some times to get where he was as an artist. And
We've all heard that self-titled solo record.
yeah, it's
I'm sorry, Jason.
So that's when I started. But it was probably early 2000s when I moved down here, and I got involved. There was a large punk scene in Mobile.
Okay.
At that time.
What brought you to Mobile in the first place?
School. My dad got a job down here, and I ended up coming down here to visit for school. I wanted to get out of Arkansas, and that was another pivotal decision that led me to where I'm at now. Is that move down here, and I fell in love with the area, and so I decided not to leave. I didn't finish college, but I decided not to leave when I got. And it's just down here has been real influential. That what brought me down here, but.
Can we talk? You mentioned it briefly, but can we talk a little bit about some of the dynamics of growing up as a Mexican kid in Arkansas and like because it sounds like
I'm mixed.
You had a lot of community, but
not a lot of Mexican community.
Yeah. See, that's what I want to explore a little bit.
So I'm mixed. My dad's full blooded. My mom's a white German lady from Tennessee. So it's this real crazy mix of cultural blends. I think I identified more with my Mexican side just because, like, we were closer to my dad's side of the family. We'd go and visit them, and had a lot of this Tejano music playing around.
And you would go down to Mexico?
No, we go to Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Yeah, okay. My grandparents they migrated when they were kids and ended up living in Oklahoma and stuff like that. But like growing up in Arkansas, there's probably like maybe 3 other Mexican kids where I grew up. It wasn't, but it was. My mom was a school teacher. She was white, so everybody pronounced my last name Padilla instead of Padilla. And I never really corrected it until we moved down here. I started using the correct pronunciation, but like
they never had paella, I guess.
I never. It was. I don't know if it was just like I was a kid that was very much in my head all the time.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, I never really existed. I felt like with everybody else. I always felt like I was invisible, not to the point like where people don't see me, where I just didn't consider that people could see me all the time. And And so I don't know if maybe I was just oblivious to any type of so there was a story about I have this friend, he was a black guy, and he so prom he was going to take this white girl, and so he went to go purchase tickets, and evidently there was this big to do because he was going to take a mixed couple, and I didn't find out about this till after we graduated, and people were talking to me like, "Don't you remember this?" And bro, I completely missed
You were just oblivious to the
all of
whole
that,
thing.
dude. And because in my mind, there was no way that would happen because it makes zero sense.
Yeah.
Because here's my parents are a mixed couple. Nobody has a problem with them. Why would it be an issue? Which that's a whole nother story we won't get into. But and all that was handled in the correct manner that it should have been. Thankfully, I'll say for my town. But yeah, dude, I was just so. I think it was just I had very very encouraging parents. A lot of times people will share with me stuff about their lives and they didn't have, and not everybody had a great childhood and everything like that. And sometimes I get this, I don't know if it's like survivor's guilt because
Yeah.
I had a great childhood, man. And I think that's a real testament to my parents more than anything that like they never limited me on what I thought I could do. If I wanted to try another instrument, if I wanted to try anything, they were like, yes, go for it. See how far you can take whatever it is you want to take. And I think that it really, like my sister is very successful in everything she does. And I think that really just fostered an environment where it allowed creativity to just be explored with no limits. So, and if you can give a human an ability to do that, then there's no telling what can happen. But that's I'm probably talking on a tangent because I'm a little high right now.
No, you're good, man. This is perfect. I am curious because this is actually something I talk about with a lot of people, a lot of
Yeah.
artists, musicians. Is like some of them have a tumultuous upbringing that
Yeah.
kind of causes, or I don't want to say causes, but is certainly a contributing factor to their artistic like endeavors and
Well,
stuff like that,
definitely.
right? And sometimes it's more internal,
Mhm.
and then sometimes they're like Jim West from Weird Al's band was like, no, I just love music. I'm a pretty happy dude, and I'm like,
Yeah, it's so yeah, that's
that must
so
be nice, but do you struggle with anything internal like anxiety,
so
depression, despite having like a nice upbringing?
I think I think anybody at any point in their life is going to experience that.
Yeah,
I don't think
yeah.
you're human unless you experience that at
Sure,
some
but has it
point.
ever been like debilitating?
No, I don't think it is. I'm genuinely like the Jim West. I'm just genuinely a happy person. I don't operate with a lot of worry in my life,
Yeah.
you know.
That must be nice.
So I was well, I think there's a lot of things that happened in my life that led to that as a contributing factor is I was born with an incurable immune deficiency. I have an immune deficiency. If I don't have my medicine, I'm gone. And my mom fought for me to get tested at a time when it was basically unknown and argued with doctors and fought for me to get tested. And they caught it enough time that I've been lucky enough and blessed enough to live a very full and healthy life, even though I'm dependent on this medicine. But a lot of people that have my disease do not get lives like that. They're very sick and stuff like that. So when I was 12, there was a problem where some hepatitis C got leaked into a batch of medicine, which for somebody, there's a lot of kids that died because of it. So, like, my parents had to sit me down and explain what was going on. So, I had to have this moment where I had to come to terms with like my mortality as a person. So, like, I think at 12, it really shifted my perspective of what I found important in life because I feel like ever since that time period or that moment, my obsession became not with like money or material things, but my obsession became with time and making sure that I'm remembered. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like we, when we're born, can only see through a pinpoint size hole into what our period of time is in effect to the universe. And so, like, in that moment, I feel like when you deal with your mortality and acceptance that like you may not be here in a year, that whole expands, and that like in the grand scheme of things, you're just this little bit of nothing that operates. And we see like in our lifetime all these great musicians, but how many great musicians have existed that we never will ever know existed?
Right.
Just because that's just how life is. It can't, it's an ocean and you get swallowed up by it. So how do you create something like Mozart that's going to be here 500 years from now? So what is the real goal in life? There's a lot of rich motherfuckers that have existed in this plane of existence since we become humans that are lost to the annals of time, that their names will never be remembered and they'll never be known.
And there's a lot of them that we remember for horrible things.
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
right?
yeah. But then you take Van Gogh, who in his time period was ridiculed. He's remembered forever.
Right.
So who really wins? And if you can put it in terms of winning or losing, which is a dumb thing to do, really, but like in the grand scheme of things, what's really important?
I think what the real winners are the people that get to experience Van Gogh,
Yeah,
Van
of
Gogh's art,
course.
or
It's,
Mozart's music,
I
or
think,
at
yeah,
the end of the
well,
day, like the
it's
people that really benefit from that are the people like they're not the artist.
no,
It's
because Van Gogh,
humanity.
yeah, Van Gogh didn't benefit really any,
It's humanity for
but
preserving it and
yeah, and
being
it
able to keep
is.
it around.
But I think the thing about the benefit to the artist in that point is, to me, that's truly the only way in this physical world to have an eternal life, to have something that you've done reverberate through history and grow and change not only people but cultures.
Yeah, yeah.
And create whole new art movements based off of what you did. And it's
Right.
that to me is, money's cool. It makes things easier. It
Yeah, at a
does. And
certain
it's,
point, like when
and
you
you
don't
got to
have
have
to,
it, like
once you
really.
have enough to not stress about it,
Yeah, but even
everybody
then,
says like that's kind of the top of what happiness money is going to bring,
yeah, and
right?
the
Like
thing is like it it we've made it a prison. And
yeah,
that's the thing, is we've
sure
made
is.
money a prison, and it's driven us to this weird lifestyle that we live now that is like completely unnecessary. And it was a discussion I was having with my guitar player this morning before he left, was like, human beings are meant to create.
Yeah.
Say you believe, if your thing is religion and you believe in Jesus or you believe in God, and that's the way I was brought up. So that's how I mostly relate with the world, is
Mm-hmm.
that is, it's said in the Bible that said we were made after his image. He's a creator. That's what he does. And if we're in his image, that means we're made to be creators too.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
not made to be put on this earth to consume. And I'm not talking about like consuming art, but just like to make our main focus in life to consume. I'm working hard to get that boat. I'm working hard to go on this trip. And there's nothing wrong with working hard. I'm not talking about anything bad about that. There's a great time to have work ethic. But when our main focus as human beings becomes to work to consume, we're limiting ourselves as a society or as a community or as even as a species, because we're leaving so much unused energy on the table that's just thrown to the side for something as common as money.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
we are made to create. We are made to invent. We are made to make things that change and evolve this world into something better.
So I was watching a video with Hank Green talking
Mm-hmm.
about, and he's like a science YouTube guy,
Yeah, yeah.
but really like pop pop culture, pop science kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But he's talking about the earliest instances of like string found in archaeology, like,
Yeah.
and all that's beside the point, because what I wanted to bring up is this comment that he makes in this video. It's like most of human history was spent with humans just spinning string. Like that's what they would do like 90% of their day. Is just they'd be sitting around making string and talking and making string and talking, like pre-loom, pre-spinning wheel.
Yeah.
You're just sitting around making string, making twine, talking, making rope, talking. Because it was like one of the most versatile technologies, and we needed it for everything. And I'm just sitting there thinking, yeah. And then like eventually maybe somebody is not great at making string, but they learn how to play a drum or a
Mm-hmm.
flute. And so somebody's gonna start, playing some music while everybody else is making string. And then maybe that's how culture is born out of creating.
Yeah.
It's not born out of consuming. It's born out of people making things that are because they have no other choice but to get it out of them.
Yeah. And I think that's like when you're born, I feel like I was born to be a musician. There's a time period when I quit playing and I quit creating, and it made me a miserable human being. It was like
Yeah.
I was stopped up. Like it was, I I would lash out because I had no mode of catharsis. I had
Right.
no mode of emptying that self, and it turned me into somebody that I didn't like. It turned me into an angry person, a frustrated person, and I honestly believe it's if. And I'm not saying like I have the answers for depression and stuff like that, but I think the thing is like a lot of the problems we have with our society, like that leads to depression and stuff, is it's everything is a consumer model, and if we would focus our attention and our energy into creating something more than ourselves, then we would find this purpose that would keep us from feeling that way. You know
Yeah.
what I'm
No, I
saying?
I completely agree,
And
man.
and
I
so
think
it's
I think
it's just
I think you're echoing what a lot of people have said too when it comes to like that when they stop creating.
mhm.
It's like damming up a river and the water's got nowhere to go and it just starts flooding everything and not in a good way.
Yeah, it's yeah. We're made to create. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're having a rough go of life and it doesn't seem like things are working out for you, look at your life and go, what am I doing to create something?
Yeah.
What am I doing? And it doesn't have to be a song. It can maybe be woodworking. Maybe it's a piece of art. Maybe it's a story. Maybe it's
Yeah.
whatever. Just
And I think
try to create something. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to. You don't create it with the sense of I got to make something good. It's
one
create
thing
something
that
just to
strikes
create.
me about our conversation so far and what you've said so far, man, is I think having that piano as a kid, having that thing that's just for you,
Hmm.
that it, even because you could have been as good or as terrible at it
Anybody.
as
Yeah.
anybody, and nobody would have cared. It was just for you. You happen to be fucking great.
Yeah. Yeah. It happened to work out, but like it. But I
but
think that
there was no pressure.
yeah, and I
It
think
was just for
that's the
you.
thing is the intention is don't learn the instrument because you want to show off to somebody. Learn the instrument because you love it.
Yeah.
Learn it because when you play it, it makes you happy. When you play it, it makes you want to be better. It makes you want to make something new. And I think intention is 100% of the thing too. Don't get into something to create it with the whole purpose of, oh, I'm going to get rich off of this. Because then
Right.
it's not going to bring you any joy. It's just going to bring you frustration
I
and more.
pity everybody on Shark Tank. Every one of those guys that
Dude,
go,
yeah.
I just feel bad for them. I'm
Yeah,
just like,
it's just not my thing, but like, I feel a lot of problems in our society could be solved by just redirecting our perspective of what's important and how we should, and that's the tall order.
I
Yeah.
think we're fighting against, and we can shift gears here in a second, but I think you're absolutely right, and I think it's coming from the the people who have an invested interest in capital
Mhm.
and it growing perpetually, and they own all the media outlets, they own everything we consume, and it promotes this culture of consumption instead of
Oh yeah.
creation. But I do want to talk about the things you've created,
Okay.
and and so you started writing songs when you started playing guitar. Were you
Hmm.
playing in bands in high school at
So
all,
so
early
at,
or?
at 16, he would put together like some of his students. He did like different had instruments, and so he put a few of us together to do like a little band, and it just encouraging us to try. Just like he's planting seeds is what he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
doing. And there's a lot of people in the music community or just in your life that are there to plant seeds that somebody else is going to harvest later. And I couldn't even be more grateful for that man to expose me to that and to encourage it.
I mean,
And
honestly, Red, you're one of those people for me.
hell
When I
yeah,
first
man.
started doing comedy, and you were coming to all my shows in VR, and you and Jedi and everybody in that little group was just like so encouraging to me and
Well,
supportive and
that's what it takes, man. People don't realize like these big astral acts got that way because they had a community around them that fostered that
well, and I could
and
tell y'all
fostered
weren't
their journey.
lying to me either.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, be honest with people too. That's another thing. But
Because you don't want somebody to here. I think about the culture I was raised in, where everybody got a trophy
mhm.
and everybody was told they could be anything they want and they could do anything they want and they were capable of anything. I think
Well, I
that
think
hurt us a lot because
yeah,
it got us to keep doing things that we weren't very good at when we could have redirected and started finding
that's the
something
thing
that
is I
we
think
were
it's
good at.
encouragement in itself is not, but blind encouragement is and non-directed encouragement. Like it's more
Right.
so you did a great job, but maybe why don't we try this instead?
Yeah, yeah.
You might enjoy this more. And I think it's all the way
Right.
you approach how you approach people and things. You don't have to be like, oh man, I just heads up, you suck. Try something else. But you don't have to be. But yeah, like you said, blind encouragement. But so I started with that band, and then when I moved down here in 2000, like the punk scene was real big, and so we started like a punk band. Matter of fact, I think I was probably the first punk band ever out of the University of Mobile, the Christian University of Mobile. And but there was a place down here called the Vineyard, and it was like a church during the day, and on the weekend, the guy Pastor Mike would let us have punk and hardcore shows there because it was a place for kids to go, and they would stay off the street.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was real influential in that.
Well, and
And
back then the punk and hardcore scene was like very straight edge, very
yes, in
kind
the
of like
2000,
in
yeah,
line with a lot of
yeah. And
the
so it
stuff they
was.
were cool with.
I met a lot of good friends through there that we did music and grew, and I learned more about songwriting and stuff. And then when I got out of that and I started having kids, that's when I quit. And so when I came back, it was after I went through my divorce, I finally had that thing in my life that like caused me grief and sorrow that I had to like draw off of.
Yeah, yeah.
And so if you listen to our first album, you can tell I was breaking into the scene here, and it was mostly an Americana
And you're
country
talking
scene
about
down
the
here.
first record of Red and the Revelers, because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
realize now I'm not sure we've actually said the full name of the band
Yeah, yeah,
until
yeah,
now.
yeah. Yeah.
No, that was my
Yeah,
bad.
Red and the
Red
Revelers
and the
was the first
Revelers.
album was called The Wizard and the Witch, and I'm very proud of it. But it was my like interpretation of what like Americana music is because I thought that's what I needed to be.
Mhm.
And at the time, that's what I felt because that's what I was going through.
What were you listening to at the time when you were writing that
Oh,
record?
bro, there's a God, dude. Hold on, you asked me that, and I fucking my
Tip of your
mind went.
tongue,
Yeah, my mind went blank.
huh?
It's a self-titled album of a real unknown artist who's a Cuban artist in the '90s that kind of did like Cuban grunge in the '90s. Neil Laura,
Okay.
Nillara, Neil Laura, and he has a self. And bro, I fell in love with that album, and it really influenced me a lot. And of course, I was listening. I was real good friends with Abe Partridge at that time, and I was listening to all his stuff, and just everything around me was that style. So I thought I had to fit into that style.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I had a couple songs that bordered on like what we're doing now, and I saw the response I got out of those, and then I got over my divorce. I got my wife now, and I'm really happy. And but I was like, I can try to force that, but that's not who I am.
Yeah, yeah.
So then I was like, we live in enough times where everything's fake that you see on TV and social media is full of just fakeness. And I was like, people are so hungry for just honesty and reality. And I said,
Yeah.
why am I going to get on here and pretend like I'm suffering when I'm not? I was like, just make people happy, man. And I think the thing that the direction I'm trying to take the band is to be this just like extreme positive force in the universe. That I want people to know that they can come to our shows and just let go. Just like you don't have to hold the world of the weight of the world on your shoulders. You can set it down and have fun and realize that there's more to this life than just these everyday bullshit problems we create for ourselves in this prison that we're putting ourselves in. It doesn't matter if you're right wing or left wing or you're red, black, yellow, orange, white, whatever, whatever sexual orientation, it doesn't matter. Because, like, I was raised to believe that God created all of us.
Yeah.
And so,
Jesus was a socialist, bro.
yeah. And it's just that, like, here's the thing, like, if he created, like it said in the, I knew you before you were formed in the womb. And that means that everybody on this earth is my brother and my sister. We all come from the same point. And how can I say I believe that and live in a life that is counterintuitive to that? And so I want our fan base and I want everybody to know this is a family.
Yeah.
Like this is La Familia.
I felt that in the crowd last night, man. It was a really cool crowd. It was like
so
such a diverse group of people all coming together just to love life.
That's the thing is, like, I've had guys that are pure metalheads. That's all they listen to is metal. And he said, my buddy wanted me to listen to it. He goes, dude, I just fell in love with your music. Because there's there's hints of metal in our music. You can hear it in there. It's all this, and it's be all things to all people. And that's really what I want us to be, is to bridge that gap between all these differences and say that, like, in this space, there is no difference. In this space, it's a spiritual thing. Like it's at the end of all our shows, and I didn't do it last night because we weren't the headliner, but usually at the end of all our shows, I end it with "Go home happy." And that's a thing I started when I was in college. Because to me, at the end of the night, that's what's important.
Yeah.
Are you going home happy? If I don't send you home happy, I didn't do my job. And I'm there to do a job. So I think that's really like the focus of the band and the music and the point of it all is that's what I write for. And it may have some politically charged messages in some of my stuff because I like to complain, but
well,
like
some people like to politicize everything, so it's I'm just singing about this, and everybody interprets it as political.
And that's the thing is it's mostly I'm just telling you my frustrations,
right?
And when you do with it what you want, but I want people to come to our shows and just let themselves feel what I feel when I'm on stage. Like, how can I make you feel that freedom? Because for me, it's a drug.
Yeah.
It is. Oh, man.
Same.
It's like mainline and heroin, dude.
I've never done that, but I imagine.
I haven't either, but I just imagine that's what it's like. Like, I imagine it's this.
As someone who does struggle with anxiety, depression, stuff like that, who isn't a like generally happy person all the time, sometimes getting on stage at 10, 15 minutes of making people laugh is the only time I'm happy that day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. And
it is a drug.
Yeah, but I think here the thing is how you take that is you recognize that. You recognize that this is what makes me happy.
Yeah.
So when you're feeling unhappy, when you're feeling like, you remind yourself that all of that, if you were to die tomorrow, wouldn't matter to nothing, right?
Yeah.
But the people you made laugh would care. So how you combat that is you say, this is what's important to me. So that's what I'm going to focus on.
I can't die now because I got another show to do.
That's right, but you can't give up because what I'm doing is too important to my journey on this earth.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Don't quit before your journey's over, because the end point doesn't matter, man. Like, where you end up at the end of all this, there's people that have been on the top of the mountain and then they're at the bottom of the hill of their life. But man, they fucking reached the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Don't get so focused on where you want to end up. Focus on how you're getting there. Focus on the journey, because, like, anticipation is always so much better than the payoff.
Yeah. That's why, like, I'll buy scratch offs once in a while.
Yeah, just
But-
fill that 3.
But no, I wait 3 days to scratch them off.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because it's like I'm
that's like-
getting
that's
a
like-
lot.
That's
out
like
of,
gambling edging. You know what I'm saying?
I
Just
think
like
I
that.
might have to use
It's like,
that,
I'm
sir.
a scratch. No, not today. I'm gonna wait.
Or I'll just scratch one number today, baby.
Yeah, I could be a millionaire by next week.
Holy shit. Oh man, you might hear that one.
Bro, that's good material.
That's good shit right there. Yeah.
But
So you have an amazing, like, a group of world-class musicians playing with you in Red and the Revelers. What was the process of putting that band together? Because it's
bro? So
that's a feat in and of itself, I feel like.
when I first started, like, I didn't know anything really about the music scene and how it operated down here, but I'd have people tell me it was cliquish and all this other stuff, and there probably was, because it'd been the same musicians used over and over and over again for years. There hadn't been a lot of change in a while, and you had this group of musicians, and they're fantastic musicians. It's not nothing saying against their skill. It's just how things were done. They were always the ones that were picked for everything.
Right.
And that it just happens. It's just a natural thing. You're going to go for the best. But a lot of times when that's considered the best, you miss other people that are just as good or sometimes even better because they weren't there when all that first started. You know what I'm saying?
Right. They just
It was
didn't have the same
mostly like
opportunities or whatever. Yeah.
I'd go to open mics and I'd meet people.
Yeah.
And I have an eye. I feel like I have an eye for talent. I have an eye for who's
I'd say
good,
so.
who's and
You think I'm funny?
yeah, exactly. So, like Alvin, our trumpet player, somebody recommended me to him, and he played with his jazz band at this place called Kazula on Dolphin Street. Fucking cool ass place, man. And I went in there totally out of place because it was, and not just because I wasn't black, but because everybody's dressed to the nines.
Oh yeah.
And I go in there in a tank top and like Dickies shorts.
You stuck out
in a bandana and sunglasses. Like I'm in the corner and everybody's like, "Where's Waldo? He's there." And and I went and saw him 2 or 3 times before I finally was like, "Hey man," and I had somebody reach out to him, tell him that I wanted him to play with us. But I found a lot of these guys just through open mics, and there were guys that weren't being utilized in a way that was befitting of their talents. And so it's like our bass player was classically trained on piano growing up. He studied bass and guitar from Corky Hughes, one of the most amazing guitarists in this area, and then went to study jazz bass in Loyola in New Orleans. Our keyboard player has a master's in choral theory, and trumpet player played in Tuskegee University's marching band. Or saxophone player, we tied together throughout our entire life when I moved down here, and plays multiple instruments. Bam is his parents. Our drummer's parents, he grew up in New York because his parents were big time musicians, like studio musicians, choral musicians. And so he had his own studio growing up. So it's just like you take all these guys that, are just beasts, and you put them all together with a common goal. Like we've literally never had one single argument as a band in the 8 years that we've been together.
That's wild.
Mostly it's because of how I structure the power structure in the band, and I take care of everything.
Benevolent
dictatorship. It's just I handle all. I pay for all the hotel rooms. I pay for all the gas.
That sounds pretty benevolent.
Yeah, and well, I do that because that money is always the main stress with any band.
Yeah.
So if I just take that upon myself, then they don't have to worry about it. We can just focus on making music. And that to me is what is important. Whether I'm profitable or not, I don't give a shit. Now, is my goal to be profitable? Yeah, because I want to do this for the rest of my life.
You want to keep doing it.
But it's for the goal of just having to do this solely. Not for being rich. I just want enough money where I can just do this and only do this.
Yeah.
But dude, you take that and that's my family, dude. I would die for those dudes. Any dude on that stage last night, I would take a bullet for in a heartbeat. And
I could feel it, man. Y'all, there was love on that stage.
That's the thing is when you take family with no stress, and you put them in a moment where they can create together, dude, man, that's magic, bro. That to me is true power.
Yeah.
Like when I get behind that microphone, a stage that big, I feel powerful because I'm in control. It's like I'm orchestrating moments. I'm not orchestrating music. I'm orchestrating memories. I'm orchestrating an entire night for somebody. I'm taking somebody's bad night and I'm turning it into the best night of their life. And
dude, my night started pretty shitty yesterday.
Yeah, you told me.
And it turned right around.
Hell yeah.
What are some of the biggest challenges of having a band that big?
Like
outside of person, not it doesn't sound like personalities are an issue.
No. Everybody in our band's super laid back.
Coordinating that many people has got to be hard, right?
We don't really get to practice as much as we like to. That's another goal, is to get to the point where it's our full-time job, so we can, because as good as we're doing now and the music that we're making now, I feel is great. I don't feel it's half of what we can do.
Yeah.
I don't think it's half of what our potential is. And it's just because we all have families, we all have kids, we're older. We're starting at this a little bit later in life than most people normally do.
Same with comedy, man.
But I think it gives us a different perspective and a different way of doing. I've really learned a lot of things that I thought were true about the music industry that have become myths to me now. Like the thing that you have to play every weekend everywhere if you want to grow. And that's just not true anymore.
Yeah.
We cut down on our shows last year and had more growth last year than we've had any of the other years. And we're playing.
You play too often and people just feel like I'll catch them next time. I'll catch them next time.
And it's one of those things, but it's just the industry's changing and you got to learn how to flow with it. You got to learn how to adapt to the way the industry's changing and everything. But the challenges of having that big of a band is when we first started off was really just making enough money to pay everybody. And I had a lot of people tell me, "Oh, there's no way you'll make any money. There's no way. You need too many people. Nobody's going to want to deal with that. None of your players are going to want to stick around." And I think that's what was important about when I curated this band, is I found people that's not what they were in it for.
Have you had any personnel changes at all?
We have. But not because of animosity to the band. It's just mostly like personal things going on in people's lives.
It doesn't sound like there's a lot of turnaround though either.
No. We're on our third drummer, but one of them moved. He moved to be with his girlfriend.
Drummers are always hard to keep, man.
And then
they're like the notorious.
But I mean, I have guys that'll come play with us anytime I want. I even have fill-ins for when we go on the road and stuff like that. And they're all cool too, but I'm very picky about who I put in the band, just because they have to meet skill level, but it also personality level, how they hang, is it going to create contention in the band? I don't want any of that. But so when we first started off, that was a thing. But I think the important thing was I found dudes that wasn't their focus either. Their focus wasn't the money. Their focus wasn't making a living. Their focus was making music.
Yeah.
Their focus was making art. Their focus was, let's explore something that hasn't been done in this area. I honestly believe that we've created a sound for ourselves that if you hear one of our songs, it's us. I want to be like Cake. I want to be like true. I want to be like Weezer.
Like I want to be like
you when it comes
on,
on,
exactly who those bands are.
You know who that is.
Yeah.
And that's what's important to me, is I'm creating something that is uniquely me, or like uniquely Mobile, and somebody described it as like a gumbo of music.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, man. It's all these little ingredients that add up to this beautiful flavor that just knocks you on your feet.
I can only think of a couple other bands that even really remind me of what y'all do at all. And they're from the same area, and it also just shows me like y'all are all doing the right, but like St. Paul and the Broken Bones.
Yeah.
Alabama Shakes.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like are in the same vein as what y'all are doing.
We get lumped in, especially with St. Paul and the Broken Bones a lot. But this is how I equate it. Like St. Paul and the Broken Bones is like Marvin Gaye and Otis Redding, and we're like Wilson Pickett and James Brown.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
Two birds of a feathers. Just ours are geared more towards this way.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah. But it's just.
And I don't even think that y'all sound that much alike.
No, but it's the same vein. It's
Yeah,
like the same breed. It's like the same species.
Yeah.
We're just different breeds of dogs. We're
Yeah.
both dogs. We're just different breeds of
Yeah,
dogs.
yeah.
But that's important. They were a big influence on me.
Yeah,
I saw them when they had their self-titled EP themselves. I still have it in my house on CD. When they played at Callahan's.
yeah.
And
They opened for the Truckers
Mhm.
before their first
their lead
album
singer
came
went
out.
to school with my brother-in-law.
Oh, hell
Birmingham.
yeah.
In
Yeah.
high school, they graduated together and stuff. So it's Alabama. I really feel like, especially like in Mobile, is producing some of the best music in the world right now. And I really feel like there's all this attention that's paid to Nashville for so long because that's what we've been conditioned to think that, oh, that's where you got to go.
Nashville's where you go to see if what
go
is
to
said is
Nashville.
so.
You go to Nashville to get swallowed up and lost in a system that
Yeah.
does not give a shit about you.
Yeah.
That's just there to turn you into money as much as they can and throw you to the wayside when they're done with you. And I really feel like in the next 15 to 20 years, we could see this resurgence of like Mobile starting to become this new music city, like the music city for actual musicians, for artists and people who want to come here and create and make something independently of this system that's just been corrupted by greed and profit and just produces nothing but plastic fucking bullshit.
What do you think is unique about Mobile that sets it apart from so many other places? Because I feel it, but I can't put it into words. I don't know what it is.
Man,
there's definitely something different
growing
about
up
this place.
at a different place and moving down here, I think I'm a big nature guy. We live on the creek here and everything. It's a big inspiration to me, but there's a lot of life here in Mobile.
Yeah.
Like this area is known as the Amazon of the United States.
Mhm.
Like we have more species than the Amazon jungle.
Yeah, Ed Wilson.
Yeah, it's nuts, dude.
Ed Wilson, like he grew up here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he when I met him in grad school, he turned to me and he said, "Don't leave this area. This is the most biologically diverse area in the world."
Yeah, and Mobile has been flown under 6 different flags. So like you go downtown, you see all this, like you can see it in the architecture, man. There's all this mishmash of all these different time periods of when this architecture was built to Mobile. So it's literally to me like the epitome of what America was supposed to be like.
Yeah.
This melting pot, like all this culture that mixed together and came into its own thing because it's truly what evolution is supposed to be.
I
Like
felt
the
that in the
evolution of
crowd
thought
last
and
night,
culture.
man.
And because Mardi Gras originated here, and it's a Mardi Gras that's focused on family and neighbors. It's not focused on, oh, show me your tits, throw me your beads, let's get drunk. And people do that, but it's more family friendly, it's more family oriented, it's more community oriented. So Mobile is this special place where like people will help you. Your neighbor will help you. Your friends will help you. Strangers. You go downtown during Fat Tuesday and you'll walk past somebody cooking sausage. Oh man, you want a sausage? They don't know you from Adam, bro. But they're your friend for that moment. And I think when you have a place like that, it's such a positive environment to be in that you can't help but have all that camaraderie, that community, and it not create something special. Because that's, as humans, is how we're supposed to live. If we focused more on community and our neighbors, our lives would be so much better, man.
Yeah.
It would be
You're
so
absolutely
much better.
right. I saw a situation last night in my hotel that speaks to exactly what you're talking about. And I don't need to go into details, but there was a situation in the hotel lobby where somebody was pretty inebriated.
Yeah.
And the hotel could have handled it 2 different ways. They could have
Got security and
gotten the man involved and made it a whole thing, but they didn't. They just helped the person, let them do their thing. Nobody was around really. It wasn't like they were causing a scene or nothing.
Yeah.
They just took care of them, and eventually they helped them to their room. Well, once they made sure they were medically okay. But
and that's the thing about down here, man. You go down to festivals down here and stuff. They allow you to bring coolers with your own alcohol.
Yeah, I had a backpack last night.
And as long as you're not making an ass out of yourself, they leave you alone,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, they can give me shit.
And they get the drunks and they'll put them in a drunk tank. But they put them in a drunk tank and they leave them there. They sober them up. They may charge them depending on however. Some people need to be charged.
Yeah, y'all are very, very welcoming. I gotta say,
That's
nice,
the whole
you know?
point, man.
Yeah.
It's like you come visit Mobile. Yeah, you need to come visit Mobile because, dude, you're going to be loved on. You're going to be celebrated. You're going to be you're not unwelcome. You're very much welcome.
Yeah,
because
this city's pretty awesome, man.
we want to share with people the specialness of this place.
Yeah.
And when you do that, it creates more magic that makes more people want to come here and more people. And then you end up with bands like the Red Clay Strays, a buddy of ours that they go out on the road and they tour super hard. And this community came together and built them up and showed the outside world, like, we have stuff that's worth it here.
Yeah,
We have stuff that nobody else has, and y'all are missing out. And so here's a band that didn't have to go to Nashville, didn't have to move to Nashville, didn't have to play that stupid game and got everything they wanted.
Yeah.
It's possible. You can do it. You don't have to buy into all these lies that are told to you that are just made to separate you from your money and have control over you.
Separate you from the means of production.
That's right, man. The revolution's now, dude. Take a hold of it and just join in. Just do it. That's the thing is, if you're out there and you're wanting to get into music or you're wanting to get into writing or you're wanting to get into comedy, you know how you do those things? You just do it.
Yeah. It's actually never been easier to get started.
Oh, yeah, easily. Yeah. You just have access to so much stuff. But even then, it's just do it.
Yeah.
Make the effort. Put the effort forth. Put everything you have into it. Don't
I used
take
to
the
focus
shortcuts.
so much, almost the opposite, where I needed everything to be perfect before I would do a thing. Everything had to be exactly how I imagined it would be before I did the thing. And it's never going to be like that. So just fucking do it.
Well, that's when people, I used to think that way too. And I realized that that was a crutch I gave myself as an excuse to get out of having to do it because I was scared.
It's true, man. Fear's a bitch.
It is. But here's the thing is, I relish fear because when I'm scared of doing something and I do it and I conquer it, God damn, dude, it's the best feeling in the world, man. God damn, dude. And
it sure is.
Be scared, dude. Make yourself as terrified as possible because if you're terrified as possible, you're doing something that's worth it.
Everything I've ever done that was worth doing was scary.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Everything.
It makes life worth living, dude. Makes life worth. God damn, who has called me? Oh, you're trying to get me to come play poker, man. Not today. Not today. But
yeah,
sorry to get so emotional about shit like that. I'm very passionate.
No, that's perfect, man. I appreciate you sharing all this with me, Red. What's you got an album coming out in April?
Yeah, dude. So
is that your fourth album?
It's our second.
It's only the second.
Yeah, it just took forever. But
why do I feel like I've heard more than 2 records already? I don't know.
I have a bunch of the singles out.
That must
already.
Yeah.
So, but we the album's coming out in April. I can tell you, April 10th we'll be releasing the vinyl and releasing it on Bandcamp.
Sweet.
And then April 25th was my birthday. We'll release it on all streaming services. It was produced by Will Turpin and Brian Collins out of Real to Real Studios. Will being the bass player for Collective Soul, and then Brian was a country artist that was on his way up during COVID, but he's very popular in Britain. He's very popular in England, and so they did an amazing job. They gave me access to people I never thought would ever. We got like Daniel De Los Reyes from the Zach Brown band, Monk percussion on one of the songs, and we got Collective Soul's Jesse Triplett, their lead player, on one of our songs. And dude, we almost had. I hate when my mind does this where I'm like, I'm gonna tell you, and then my mind's like, you look like an idiot and not remember. Lee Oscar. We almost had Lee Oscar on harmonica, which he played with War. That's the dude that did Lowrider. So as a Mexican kid, that's fucking dope, man. And which I got to hang out with him and stuff, which was cool, and meet him. And it didn't work out, but so we got this really awesome album. I got what I think is an amazing album cover, and it's just we're shopping to labels and stuff right now, hoping to make something happen. And But even if that doesn't happen, it is not going to stop us. We got an investor now, so we're pushing forward. We're making that April. I think 2026 is going to be a very, very big year for us.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to just connect real quick again online.
Yeah,
we'll do a quick just follow up just to
Once
promote
the album
record.
comes out,
the
we'll
week
come
the
back
album
out.
comes out, we'll just do a quick follow up and you can talk about it, because I'd love to. I know what we'll do. We'll meet in VR chat, and our avatars can talk about the record for a few minutes.
Come as an e-girl though. It's gonna be real awkward.
Oh man, I'll try not to be aroused.
Yeah. I'm gonna make it difficult.
Is there anything else you want to? Is there anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to cover? You got shows? This will probably be out in early February. So if you have any shows that you want to mention, I can also mention them in the intro.
I can announce. So on April 10th, we're gonna have our vinyl release party show. Since this is coming out in February, we'll announce it by then. We're doing it at Soul Kitchen, which is the big venue here in Mobile.
I love Soul Kitchen.
We're going to have the John Hall Band open for us, which his son is a drummer for the Red Clay Strays. So there might be a possibility that they're back. Most of them are backing him up, which would be awesome. I can't confirm nor deny that. I know it's up in the air, so we'll see. And then we have a band from Atlanta called Hey Dreamer that's off of our fellow publishing company, Real People Music, our Real People Music family. They're incredible band. And
I'll just have to be here for that.
Yeah, of course.
I'll just come back. Yeah.
And so we'll do that, and then we'll do like a tour through Mississippi and up in Missouri and stuff, where we with the vinyls and go and release that. And so
I'm gonna get you in Tallahassee, man. It's gonna happen.
Oh yeah.
But man, it's been so great to fucking learn all this, catch up with you.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much for being
here. Thanks
for
coming out here, brother. It's been a pleasure, dude.
Yeah, man.
I enjoyed every minute of it.
Hey, I love you, brother. Thank you
too,
so
man.
much.
Love you too, brother.
Hope y'all enjoyed my talk with Red Padilla. We had a great time. You're not going to want to miss out on Red and the Revelers. They are the next big thing, I promise. Just check them out. I've got a link to their first single from the new album in the description of this episode. I'll see you guys at a lot of events coming up in the next few weeks, hopefully. Next week, Heathen's Homecoming, Drive-By Truckers, Athens, Georgia, 40 Watt. I'll be at all 4 shows. I'll be hanging out for a few days afterwards, interviewing some people. I'll be at the Nucci Space Auction. Tons of events with people that have been on this podcast next week. I'm super excited for it. February 27th at the Blue Tavern, we got Danny Bedrosian. I'm sponsoring that event. This podcast is sponsoring that event. We're going to be covering that. I'll have an episode coming out soon, another episode with Danny, talking more about the history of Parliament Funkadelic's music and less about his history. And then, of course, I'll be at P-Funk Fest on April 11th, celebrating George Clinton's 85th birthday. I'll be bringing some exclusive interviews from that. It's also going to be the 20th anniversary of Danny Bedrosian's Secret Army with the rhythm section of Parliament Funkadelic. So I'm going to be talking to those guys. It's going to be a really, really fun event. Get your tickets now. I'll see y'all in Athens.